It was the end of the school day, and Fumiya Tomazaki was in the old Ave room, engrossed in his favorite video game, Super Attack Families, commonly known as Takum. He was playing against Shuji Nakamura, a popular classmate who had everything: good looks, excellent grades, and athletic prowess. In comparison, Tomazaki was a strong contender for the title of Loser of the Year. However, there was one thing he excelled at: this video game. After defeating Nakamura, the latter started complaining about the game instead of accepting his loss gracefully. Rather than acknowledging his defeat, Nakamura blamed the game for his shortcomings and suggested they play again. Tomazaki agreed, but added that if he won again, Nakamura would have to accept his defeat. Unsurprisingly, Tomazaki won once more. After the game, Nakamura met some female students outside and suggested they stop somewhere on their way home to get some drinks. As they left, Tomazaki quietly exited the school building, feeling a mix of satisfaction and loneliness. Tomazaki headed home, contemplating how much of his life felt like garbage. Later that night, he sat in his room playing video games against a player named No Name, who was matching his every move. He was impressed by how No Name had refined their counter strategy. Although Tomazaki was better at executing combos and fighting mono wars, No Name excelled at dodging those combos, something even top-tier players struggled with because they often focused more on offense than defense. This made Tomazaki wonder why the second-best national player was so skilled in defense. It then dawned on him that No Name was purposely allowing himself to get beaten to improve his defensive skills, which Tomazaki found impressive. After the game ended, No Name sent him a message asking if he lived in the Kanto region. Tomazaki confirmed that he did, so No Name suggested they meet up the next day at school. While everyone else was fooling around and chatting with friends, Tomazaki sat quietly at his table, watching them and wondering if he could ever become a top-tier player. During the break, a female classmate named Aoi Hanami called out to him. When he stopped, she asked if it was true that he played Tact Fam with Nakamura. Tomazaki didn't know how to respond, so he asked her how she knew. She replied that it was all anyone was talking about, then asked who won the game. Nakamura, overhearing the conversation, admitted that he had lost, but brushed it off, saying it wasn't a big deal. He then told Hanami to stop gossiping and come along instead. That weekend, Tomazaki went to meet up with No Name, curious about the kind of person they were. As he read a text from No Name describing what they were wearing, he realized that No Name was actually a girl, not a guy. Looking around, he spotted a girl in a beige-colored skirt and approached her. To his surprise, the girl turned out to be Aoi Hanami. She was just as shocked to see him as he was to see her. Aoi Hanami found it hard to believe that Nanashi, the country's top player, was standing before her and told him she was disappointed that the person she respected most was, in her words, a deadbeat loser. Tomazaki, taken aback, asked her why she was being so rude. Hanami coldly replied that she was only speaking the truth. Tomazaki argued that some things are better left unsaid and told her it was rude to speak so bluntly to someone she hardly knew. Hanami, realizing she might have crossed a line, apologized for hurting his feelings, albeit a bit insincerely. Tomazaki told her that it was a free country and he could wear whatever he wanted. However, she insisted that it was common courtesy to dress appropriately when meeting people. She then critically assessed his outfit, from his shoes to his shirt, and remarked that even Sticky Joe dressed better than he did. She also pointed out that his bed hair was an eyesore, before turning to leave. Feeling insulted, Tomazaki stopped her and defended himself. He told her that there was nothing wrong with who he was or how he dressed, explaining that not everyone fits in. He added that, unlike a game, life had no strict rules to follow, and everyone had their own role to play. Unfortunately, his role in life, as he saw it, was that of a bottom-tier character, someone deemed worthless by the rich normies like her, whom he deeply despised. He emphasized that everyone had their own values and that she shouldn't impose hers on him, but Hanami was unimpressed. She told him he was acting like he had plastic balls, accusing him of being the type of person who blames the game instead of owning up to their poor playing skills. She said he could blame the world all he wanted, but as long as he never made an effort to change things, he would remain a pathetic loser for the rest of his life. Tomazaki argued back, saying that life wasn't like a game where you could simply switch characters. This prompted Hanami to grab onto his hand, challenging his perspective even further. Tomazaki found himself sitting in Hanami's room, being pulled along by her, and wondered how he had managed to get himself invited to the house of a hottie like her. Just as he was lost in his thoughts, she walked in even wearing a different outfit. The dim-witted Tomazaki mistook her for a relative, prompting Hanami to explain that she had simply taken off her makeup, which made her look different. She remarked that it was easy to change someone's impression of you with minimal effort, emphasizing that with the right expression and posture, you could be whoever you wanted. However, Tomazaki didn't seem to grasp the meaning of what she was trying to convey, so Hanami decided to give him a demonstration. She explained that by perfecting your expression and posture, you could be perceived as a normie. She urged him not to assume that her high social status was due to natural talent alone, revealing that she once lived an ordinary life back in elementary school. Hanami then elaborated, saying that Tomazaki could gain confidence and improve his communication skills if he put in more effort and stopped acting as if the world was against him. Hanami admitted that she had put immense effort into everything she did, but despite her hard work, she could never beat Nanashi when playing Takfam, which was why she considered him more capable than herself in the game. However, she added that in the game of life, Nanashi was a loser, someone who allowed life to make him its pawn, simply because he was too much of a coward to fight back. She confessed that it was the most unforgivable thing in her life that the person she couldn't beat was just a worthless scumbag, which made her feel even worse than him. Continuing, Hanami explained that the game of life was made up of many simple rules, which, when mastered, made it a god-tier game. She told Tomazaki that she was going to teach him these rules one by one, ensuring he would play the game like a pro. Despite her passionate speech, Tomazaki just stared at her like an idiot before admitting that her heartfelt words were hardly convincing. However, he did agree with her that making no effort and blaming the game for his losses was a gamer's greatest shame. He confessed that she was the only player he respected because he had observed her play and saw the immense effort and hard work she put into it. Even though Tomazaki felt that they couldn't fully understand each other, he asked her to explain why life was a god-tier game. Hanami then told him that life was a god-tier game, tied with Takfam for first place, which piqued his interest. He suddenly recalled how people online praised him for his incredible Takfam skills, though he had never received recognition from those around him. Despite the time and effort he poured into the game, he believed he didn't need recognition in real life since Takfam was a god-tier game, which was enough for him. But for the first time, someone was telling him that life was just as engaging as Takfam, making him feel like his efforts were finally being acknowledged. Although Tomazaki still believes that life is a garbage game and Takfam is far superior, he admits that if what Hanami says is true, then he is willing to try it as a player. Hanami explained that the first step he had to take was character development. Later, when they go out, he gives her a box of face masks and tells her to wear them while she practices smiling. The next day, she wrote down a list of goals she wanted to achieve, the first of which was to have someone other than herself notice the improvements in her condition. The first goal was to improve his appearance. The second was to get a girlfriend before the beginning of their third year. The final goal was to speak to 3 girls, 2 of whom she would pick out, and 1 of his own choosing. When he got to class, he decided to tackle the task Hanami had assigned to him. He remembered her advice about being straightforward when speaking to someone for the first time. So, he asked Yuzu if she had any tissues. Yuzu told him she didn't have any but asked Fuka, the girl sitting behind her, if she had any. Fuka handed hers over, and after Yuzu passed the tissue to him, she went back to chatting with her friends. Tomazaki had no choice but to use the tissue. However, Fuka noticed him grinning like the Joker and asked why he was smiling so much. Embarrassed, Tomazaki told her that he was actually having a toothache, so he was grimacing, not grinning. The next person he was supposed to talk to was Minami. Knowing she would be in their next class, he headed there. When he arrived, he noticed that Tama hadn't arrived yet. He remembered her instructions to only speak to the girls when she was around, so he stood by the table, feeling like an NPC, trying to figure out what to do next. Just then, Minami spoke to him, catching him off guard and sending him into panic mode. He managed to respond, but she started laughing, saying he was talking like an old man. As she laughed, Tama, another classmate, arrived and asked what was so funny. Minami explained it to her. While they were talking, Nakamura and his friends arrived, and he asked Vami what had her so worked up. She told him that Tomazaki had made a joke, so Nakamura asked him to repeat it. Tomazaki did, but Nakamura and his friends didn't find it funny. Minami told them that they were too dumb to understand such a sophisticated joke, so she wouldn't blame them for it. Nakamura argued that at least his brain cells worked, unlike hers, which were filled with TikTok trends. As they bantered, Tomozaki noticed Tama looking at Nakamura strangely and wondered what it was about. But before he could figure it out, his attention was drawn back to Minami and Nakamura, who were now asking everyone to vote on who was weirder between them. Just then, Minami and the others were startled when Hanami stepped in and told Nakamura to bug off and stop picking on Tomozaki just because he had lost a game to him. This unexpected intervention shocked everyone. Hanami continued, telling Nakamura that he was behaving like an immature child, which was the reason his girlfriend had dumped him. She preferred to date real men like Kento, who had confidence and maturity. She then challenged Nakamura, saying that if he really wanted to prove himself, he should do it by beating Tomozaki in TACFAM, a competitive game they often played. Nakamura, now even more riled up, accepted the challenge and stormed off. After he left, Minami and Tama thanked Hanami for standing up to Nakamura. Hanami just smiled and said, "That's what friends are for." Later that day, during their club meeting in the sewing room, Hanami commended Tomozaki for the effort he put into his first task, even though he had made some awkward mistakes like blowing his nose in front of Fuka like an idiot and grinning like a scarecrow. Tomozaki confessed that he had made the whole situation awkward because he didn't know what to say. Hanami reassured him, telling him that it was all right and that, as time went on, he would get better at handling these social situations. Tomozaki then asked Hanami why Tama had looked at Nakamura so strangely earlier. She explained that Tama had little tolerance for people like Nakamura, those who were arrogant and tried to put others down. The next day, Hanami gave Tomozaki a new assignment. Aside from working on his posture, she told him to try talking to people while in a group. That evening, after school, Tomozaki managed to insert himself into the conversation that Hanami and Minami were having with their friends, thus successfully completing his goal. When they arrived at the train station, Hanami informed Tomozaki that he and Minami lived in the same neighborhood and encouraged him to try having a conversation with her while they walked home. As they walked, he asked Minami how she always managed to be so happy and cheerful. She told him that she believed facing the world with a smile was important, even when things were bad, because it helped to keep a positive outlook. They soon arrived at a zebra crossing, and as they waited for the lights to change, Minami asked if something was going on between him and Hanami. Flustered, he laughed and replied that there was no way a brinch like him could ever bag a baddie like Hanami, using the slang humorously. Minami chuckled at his response, but seemed to consider his words thoughtfully. The next day, Hanami advised Tomozaki to practice introducing new topics during conversations, pushing him further out of his comfort zone to help him build confidence and social skills. And Hanami noticed that Tomozaki was having trouble expanding on his ideas when speaking to people. To help him, she gave him some flashcards with different conversation topics, explaining that if he ever got stuck during a conversation, he could use them to keep it going. She also provided him with a voice recording of her speaking, which she told him to use for practice. This way, he could listen to his responses and know what he needed to improve. Hanami then informed him that as part of his training, he would spend his Saturdays with her. On Saturday, Tomozaki heads to the meeting place at the shopping mall, where he meets up with Aoi Hanami. She is visibly upset with him for arriving late. However, her annoyance quickly fades when she notices that, at the very least, he has made an effort to dress up this time. After playfully bashing him for a while, Hanami takes Tomozaki to a high-end clothing store to buy some Gucci drip for him. Tomozaki feels hesitant, as he has never been to such an upscale store before, but Hanami patiently walks him through all the important steps of shopping for designer clothes. After picking out a stylish outfit, Tomozaki is ready to head to the counter to make the purchase, but Hanami stops him and insists that he try on the clothes first to check the fit. Nervously, Tomozaki realizes he has never spoken to a store employee before about trying on clothes and feels a surge of anxiety. After some gentle encouragement from Hanami, he finally musters up the courage to ask the staff member for help. Despite repeating the sentence sequence in his mind multiple times. Tomozaki still manages to mix up his words. Seeing his distress, Hanami quickly steps in and saves him from further embarrassment by smoothly covering up his mistake. After successfully buying the clothes, they head to a nice restaurant for lunch. Once they sit down and choose their meals, Tomozaki, still a bit unsure of himself, asks Hanami what they should do next. With a knowing smile, Hanami replies that they need to visit a salon to fix his hairstyle, which currently makes him look like a protagonist from a famous harem anime. After a few more minutes of chatting and laughing, their food finally arrives, and when he called Tomozaki's name, they were surprised to realize it was Fuka. Hanami greeted Fuka warmly, and after a brief exchange, Fuka expressed her surprise that Tomozaki and Hanami were friends. Hanami explained that they had grown close during their home economics class. After Fuka left them alone, Hanami turned to Tomozaki and mentioned that Fuka was going to be his first heroine. This unexpected statement surprised him, so Hanami elaborated, explaining that they would work to make Fuka his girlfriend. She reasoned that out of all the girls he had interacted with, Fuka seemed the most promising candidate. Hanami pointed out that when Tomozaki had asked Yuzu for tissues earlier, Fuka had already had some ready, indicating her thoughtfulness. However, Tomozaki remained confused. Hanami then explained that when Fuka came to deliver their food, she called his name first, even though Hanami was seated right next to him. While it was customary to greet someone of the same gender first, Fuka's choice to address him suggested that she had a particular interest in him. Tomozaki dismissed this, saying it was ridiculous to assume Fuka wanted to be his girlfriend based on those observations. He still had doubts about Fuka's feelings for him. However, Hanami encouraged him to try and see if he developed any feelings for Fuka in return. When she asked if he wanted to give up, Tomozaki hesitated. He admitted that while he felt uneasy about possibly fooling Fuka, he had committed to playing the game of life and intended to see it through. The next day in the sewing room, a visibly excited Tomozaki told Hanami that he had achieved one of his smaller goals. Curious, Hanami asked what it was. Tomozaki explained that his younger sister had noticed changes in him and jokingly asked if he was taking a course on how to get laid. Despite the teasing nature of her comment, Tomozaki was pleased because it signaled that his efforts were paying off. Hanami, slightly bemused, asked why he was so happy over his sister's words, but Tomozaki insisted that it didn't matter. What mattered was that he had completed a task. Hanami congratulated him, acknowledging his progress. Still, Tomozaki was humble, noting that all he had done was mimic the mannequin's dress style and get a new haircut. Hanami, however, reminded him that he had also been working to improve his facial expressions, and that effort was making a difference. Her posture was already paying off, and she said that although he might not have reached the goal entirely on his own, he had put in significant effort and should give himself some credit. She then mentioned his next goal, to spend time with a girl from school who wasn't her. Tomozaki quickly realized she was implying he should go on a date. She clarified that his goal for the week was to talk to Yusu at least twice a day, and Hanami explains to Fumiya Tomozaki that in a dating simulator, having backup options is essential. Accepting this advice, Fumiya Tomozaki sets a goal to connect with Yusu and begins talking to her daily. Despite his efforts, he struggles to meet expectations, leaving him disappointed. One day, while sitting in the library as usual, Fuka notices him. She starts a conversation and quickly notices that the book he is reading is by her favorite author. Excited, she begins asking him about it. Tomozaki, who picked the book at random and doesn't even know the author's name, tries to hide his ignorance. He resorts to using basic conversational tactics to bluff his way through. Fuka, thrilled by the chance to finally talk about her favorite author with someone, beams with happiness, grateful for his apparent interest. She expresses her appreciation to Tomozaki. After thanking him, she gazes at him with newfound admiration. Gathering her courage, Fuka crouches beside him and shyly reveals that she has been writing a novel of her own for quite some time. With a hopeful but nervous smile, she asks if he would be willing to read it and share his honest opinion. Caught up in the intensity of the moment, Tomozaki agrees without hesitation. But soon after, regret washes over him. He realizes he knows almost nothing about literature or critiquing novels. Unsure of what to do, he seeks advice from Hanami, who only encourages him. She points out that reading Fuka's work could be a great opportunity to deepen their bond. Trying to set his worries aside, Tomozaki walks home, lost in thought. As he turns a corner, he notices Yuzu sitting by herself on a bench, looking unusually downcast. Even though he has already completed exceeded his social interaction quota for the week. He can't help but approach her to see if she is okay. Initially, Yuzu seems annoyed by his concern and gives him a cold response. But after a brief pause, she calls out to him and, to his astonishment, asks if he could teach her how to play Takum. Tomazaki is taken aback by the unexpected request. Tomazaki puts a finger in his ear to clean it, convinced he must be hearing things wrong. This infuriates Yuzu, who is genuinely determined to learn Taken, so she can impress Nakamura with her flawless combos. Yuzu explains to Tomazaki that after Erika, a girl from their class, confessed to Nakamura and got rejected, she thought her own chances were gone. However, Nakamura's rejection sparked a new determination in her. She wanted to try her best to win his attention, so she wouldn't regret not making an effort. Yuzu knows that Nakamura has been practicing Taken diligently, so she wants to master it too, not only to compete with him, but also to defeat him and, as she teasingly puts it, punish him. Tomazaki is amazed to see such passionate resolve from her and decides to help. However, he first asks where they would practice the game. Blushing shyly, Yuzu suggests her house. A short while later, Tomazaki finds himself entering the room of another girl for the first time, a situation made possible thanks to his Tekken skills. He sits beside Yuzu and plays a few matches with her, demonstrating the vast skill gap between them. Then, he shows her a recording of one of his matches with Hanami, a top-tier player, to give her an example of high-level gameplay. Along the way, he provides her with helpful tips and even takes the time to create a detailed guidebook tailored to her needs. Yuzu is awestruck by his expertise and can't help but ask how he enjoys the game so much when he faces no real competition. Tomazaki answers that he doesn't play Taken just because it's fun. He plays it because it's a god-tier game with incredible mechanics and endless potential to master. He starts passionately ranting about the game's brilliance, but Yuzu cuts him off mid-sentence, calling him a nerd. Amused, Tomazaki responds that someone once told him the same thing but not about Taken. Instead, she described real life as a top-tier game. This person helped him change his perspective on life, encouraging him to work hard and improve himself. Slowly but surely, he began enjoying life and viewing it more positively, just like he does with Taken. Realizing the conversation has drifted into personal territory, Tomazaki awkwardly stops himself and returns to helping Yuzu with her practice. Tomazaki gives a few more tips to Yuzu before leaving. Later, he meets up with Hanami to discuss what happened with Yuzu, which comes as a surprise to Hanami, as she hadn't expected such a development. However, she reminds him that's why she gave him several extra options, ensuring he can continue playing the game. To support him further, she hands him 2 tickets for a movie, telling him to use them if he manages to ask Fuka out on a date. The following day at school, Yuzu approaches Tomazaki to show him her progress, which impresses him. In response, he provides her with additional guidance to help her improve even further. Days go by as Tomazaki continues mentoring Yuzu, their dynamic gradually improving with each session. One day, Tomazaki heads to the library, where he finally gets to meet Fuka again. During their conversation, he admits the truth that he knows little about books and had exaggerated his interest the last time they talked. Feeling guilty, he explains that he has decided to try reading the works of her favorite author so they can have meaningful discussions in the future. Fuka is touched by his effort and determination, which makes her happy. Despite the positive interaction, Tomazaki finds himself unable to muster the courage to ask her out and decides to wait for a better moment. After school, as Tomazaki is about to head home, he is stopped by Nakamura's friends. They lead him to the old AV room, where Nakamura is waiting for him with a game console. Nakamura challenges him to a duel, and Tomazaki reluctantly agrees, knowing he cannot back down. Taking a seat, Tomazaki confidently tells Nakamura that even though he has been practicing a lot, he still won't be able to defeat him. Surprised, Nakamura demands to know how Tomazaki knows about his practice sessions, realizing he has accidentally revealed too much. Nakamura falters, but eventually admits he learned about it from Yuzu. However, Nakamura isn't particularly shocked by the slip, as he suspected Yuzu might be involved in some way. The match is about to start when Yuzu opens the door and finds them. Along with Yuzu are Erika and a few other girls, who are stopped by Nakamura. He insists on beating Tomazaki in front of everyone. Both players select their characters, and the match begins. As expected, Tomazaki easily defeats Nakamura in every round. However, Nakamura keeps demanding more rematches, refusing to give up. Erika's friends grow impatient and want to leave, but Nakamura Nakamura blocks their way, which makes Erika furious. She can't believe that Nakamura is wasting so much time on a stupid game. This infuriates Nakamura, and he retorts that it's none of Erika's business. Their exchange quickly escalates into an argument. When Erika begins to mock his favorite game, calling it pointless and a waste of time, Tomozaki becomes visibly angry. His usual calm demeanor vanishes, and he passionately defends the game, explaining the effort it takes to learn and master it. Erika is taken aback by his sudden outburst, and as tensions rise, she prepares to leave. At this moment, Yuzu unexpectedly sides with Tomozaki, further defending his passion for the game. Erika, already upset, grows even angrier. She snaps and angrily kicks Yuzu out of her friend group, declaring that Yuzu is no longer part of it. Yuzu, deeply hurt by this rejection, is left feeling sad and isolated. Just then, Hanami, who has been quietly watching the situation unfold, steps in to console Yuzu. Nakamura also surprisingly offers her some comfort, showing a gentler side of himself. The unexpected support from both Hanami and Nakamura helps lift Yuzu's spirits, and seeing this, Tomozaki can't help but smile, feeling that his efforts to help others connect are starting to pay off. Later that day, Tomozaki and Hanami are having lunch together. During their conversation, Tomozaki gathers the courage to invite Hanami to watch a movie with him, using the tickets she had previously given him. However, Hanami kindly rejects his invitation, explaining that she will be busy the next day. Instead, she suggests they go watch a movie right then. This excites Tomozaki beyond measure, and his face lights up with a smile as bright as a shining star. Hanami smiles in return, pleased to see Tomozaki so happy. In that moment, she feels a sense of fulfillment, believing that her efforts to support and encourage him have truly been worth it.